Arduino Development Boards are offering configurable functions, however with limitations. You can avoid the mess I had with a simple consideration. Imagine you are testing a great electronics project on a breadboard. The next step is to solder the elements on a universal circuit board, or you might even want to develop your own printed board for the project. In this case, you should now listen carefully. The sponsor of this video is making a great offer for manufacturing your PCBs. You can really go the easy way with PCBWay. On PCBWay's websites, you will find attractive solutions for your maker projects up to professional solutions, including services. Just take a look. Before you start developing a PCB, it's worth making a few considerations so that you can use the hardware as flexible as possible. What do I mean with that? When I have finished a project, I'm always having a lot of further ideas for additional features. Guys, it's good to learn from your own mistakes. But it's better to learn from other people's mistakes. For example, I would like to add a dimmable LED or receive signals from a sensor. Then I realized that I have no pulse width modulation output available anymore. And I used the only I2C input as a digital input to something which I could have assigned to any other digital input. I could have avoided this. Today I want to explain a simple rationale that gives you the most flexibility with an Arduino Nano board. Maybe I will additionally explain this with a more complicated ESP32 board in a later episode. There is a number of pins that you can assign different functions. We specify this in the definitions and in the setup void of your Arduino code. In addition to digital inputs and outputs, you can define analog inputs or outputs with pulse width modulation, which gives you a kind of analog output. And then there are inputs for external interrupt control and certain communication protocols like I2C. Unfortunately, the assignment of the pins cannot be chosen completely free. And with some functions you are even tied to certain pins. But there is a way to achieve the best flexibility. When planning a new project or replicating a suggestion, just spend a minute more to think through the pin assignment. In proposals for maker projects, it is chosen random, and usually there are several alternative solutions fitting better your needs. Now, here is a simple procedure to make it better. You enter the pinout assignment of your board in a list. You can find it for each board on the internet. This gives us already an overview which pins you can use to implement certain functions. In addition, write your planned projects and functions that might interest you in the future in the columns on the right. In my case, this is a library for frequency measurement, a stepper motor gauge with some LEDs, and connecting a BME 280 sensor that measures air pressure, humidity and temperature. Now let's see if it works out when we try to realize all these features. Even when I could use them as digital in or out, I exclude the two top pins, as these are used for the serial interface, which I need for debugging and communication with a PC. The reset pin you can't use for anything else anyway. And then we have a second reset pin, the input for the power supply, a 5 volts pin, a 3.3 volts pin, and a pin for a reference voltage. These are fixed and cannot be changed. I show here in green which pins and functions are available to us. Now for my preferences. The BME 280 needs definitely pins A4 and A5, as I can only implement the I2C interface for the sensor with these two pins. The frequency measurement library, which I want to use, requires pins D8, D9 and D10. So I really can't use these pins for anything else. In the end, I only have these pins left for my stepper gauge project to control the stepper motor and the LEDs. But still, all the LEDs are even dimmable via pulse width modulation. And on top, there are still a few analog inputs that can be used as an option. The next step is then the rearrangement of the schematic. And then comes the realization of the project on a prototype board or a printed board. You could achieve even more flexibility by adding jumpers or dip switches onto your board. Of course, you shouldn't go over the top with that method, but it saves time and effort, which you better want to spend for your new ideas. I will apply this method for all my projects in the future. It really pays off when you simply think about what options you want to keep open and invest a few minutes in those considerations. You might want to try this method too. Now stay tuned and don't forget to support the channel. See you soon in the coming episodes.